Welcome to the Through the Lens of Learning podcast. If we haven't met, hello, I'm your host, Dr. Tracy Schroyer. I'll give you 2 words that summarize me to a T: lifelong learner. Join me as I share a bit about my own journey of curiosity, learning, and wonder. You'll also get to hear from some phenomenal individuals on what they're curious about learning and what they have to share too. Are you itching with excitement yet? I am, so let's get started. All right, so for this episode, we are talking with Dr. Nicole Garritano. Am I saying that right?
Yes,
Okay,
that's
awesome.
correct.
So Nicole, thank you so much. Dr. Nicole, thank you so much for being
Yes.
on this podcast with me. Can you share a little bit about yourself with the audience?
Yes. So I'm Dr. Nicole Garritano. I like to tell everyone I'm like a recovering academic, spiritual junkie. That's like the down low about me. But yes, I spent I was in healthcare for over 16 years, in academia over 8 years. I'm a doctorally prepared nurse practitioner, but really in the coaching world, I really view myself more as a facilitator, really helping people tap into like who they truly are, what truly lights them up. And I just blend in all these different teachings, certifications. It's like all these amazing traditional teachings blended with modern modalities that I bring together to really serve others. And one of my favorite tools to use is human design.
Awesome. And I had gone through recently your Client Attraction Academy and learned my human design and how to use that within my business. And we'll get to that a little bit later.
Yes.
But what I want to just start with before we're going to dig into your learning journey, kind of where you started, where you are now, and then what your plans are for the future. But can you start out by telling us, what does learning mean to you?
Oh my gosh, learning means freedom. It's like total access to everything. So I view it as ultimate freedom.
Love it. Love it. All right. So Dr. Nicole, let's go back to your past. I know, go back to when you were a young kid in school. What were some of the subjects that you enjoyed?
Yes, so I absolutely always loved English. I loved, if you go all the way back to like first grade, kindergarten, I loved handwriting. I really loved making every letter perfect. I loved vocabulary class when you had the vocab book. When we were in grade school, I might be dating myself with that a little bit, but the nice little vocab book. And I always remember my mom. She had this funny story about me. I guess my kindergarten teacher or my first grade teacher, she had been reading us a book one day, and like they'll ask you like, what do you think those characters were feeling, and like really prompt students at that age. And I guess I raised my hand and I said, I bet they felt really shocked. And the teacher just thought that was so funny because most first graders wouldn't use that word, at least
right
at that time frame. And so my mom used to always like to tell me that story, that I just always talked like a grown up and loved to be in the adult conversation. So that was probably part of my love of English vocab and really telling stories.
Okay. So when you started going through school and you're getting into high school, I know we sped up quite a bit, but what were you thinking about when you were in high school of, what do you want to do after you leave high school? I know college is for some people, it's not for others, but what were you thinking of? And then where did you kind of start your journey from there?
Yeah, so actually both my parents were teachers. So college was really never not on the table. It was always like when you go to college. So definitely some conditioning around that. They both went to college. So myself and my siblings, it was always on the trajectory. So I really never thought about not going to college. But I really felt this calling to study like journalism, writing. I still want to do that aspect of writing. I really always enjoyed writing and sharing in that way. So I was really drawn to like creative writing and journalism when I was in high school, just meeting with the guidance counselors, like really thinking about, ooh, what would I want to study? What would I want to do? And there was even like this tiny part of me that was like, ooh, I would like love to do some acting. Like that would be so much fun. And I had done like acting classes in high school just as electives when we were allowed to choose.
Okay. So when you left high school and went into college, did you start with like journalism, communication? Like what was your major starting out?
Yes. So I was in speech communications. I stayed in that the whole entire time.
Which is
my
rare.
dad, yes.
Rare.
Well, my dad was willing, my parents were willing to pay for 4 years of college. If we could get done in 4 years, then it was all paid for our bachelor's degree.
Nice.
So I went in the summer. I went, I went every chance. I took a full load every semester because I didn't want to have that debt. You know what I mean, from that undergrad
Right.
degree. And he did dash my hopes of majoring in theater or acting. I
Oh.
was allowed to take some electives, but I did stay within speech communications with a focus in public relations and marketing the entire 4 years.
So when you were during that time frame, what were you thinking when I'm done with school? What am I going to do?
Yeah, so I
Yeah.
really wanted to work like in a big ad agency. I thought it would be like so fun to like go and help the creative people. Like I really wanted to do the copy, like come up with the taglines and do all those fun marketing pieces with using different words and putting all that together. And I really saw myself like being part of this team, and it was going to be so fun. And I was going to get to travel, and maybe I get to go work in New York or Chicago, and just like very glamorized in my mind at that point in time.
Okay. And do you remember what your favorite class was during your undergrad?
Yeah, so I really loved my creative writing classes and my journalism classes. I still really enjoyed focusing on my writing. I thought that was a lot of fun.
Awesome. Awesome. So when you did finally finish with your undergrad,
Yes.
what did you do from there? Did you go work? Did you go to that glamorous lifestyle? Did you decide to
I
keep going to school? Like,
Yeah, so I did go to work. I did go to
okay.
work, and I did get a job at an ad agency here
Nice.
locally, like in
Uh-huh.
downtown Cincinnati. And no, it was not as glamorous because even though I had this 4 year degree and I'd gone to a really nice school, um, they had me come in and start at the front desk.
Right. After you've done all the
So,
school and then you have to start
yes.
at the front desk.
Yeah, so yes, my glamorous dreams were definitely dashed. However, in retrospect, when I think back on that, like I got to be the first face everyone saw when they
Mhm.
came through the door. And I really like organized everything up front. I was like the hostess with the mostest, which is so much a part of my personality, just very welcoming, and I get to know people and make them feel at ease. So even though at the time I felt like a bit deflated, when I think back on that experience, I'm like, gosh, you know what? I really used so many of my skills and just natural gifting and abilities and talents in that role. And, it definitely humbled me. I didn't take future roles for granted because I knew what it was like to like literally start at the bottom, you know what I
Right.
mean, of an
Right.
organization.
And how long did you stay in that role?
So I was in that role about a year, and then
Mhm.
they put me into like an account management position within
Okay.
that company.
Was that more
And
exciting?
it was a bit more exciting. I learned
Mhm.
a lot about office politics.
Oh gosh.
Um, there were a lot of fun things that went on in that particular office. Scandalous things, fun things, lots
Wow.
of fun happy hours. So I did learn a lot about dynamics, right? And like
Mhm.
what you talk about, what you don't talk about. There was a big learning curve there for sure. So
Yeah.
yeah, a bit more glamorous, but also like some of that just practical social learning that you have to do within an organization as well.
Right, right. So
Mhm.
did you decide, "I wanna stay in this role, I wanna, continue to climb my ladder in this organization or the industry," or
No, I was a
oh,
big job hopper. I'll be super
okay.
transparent.
Yeah.
I mean, I stayed there, I think about 3 years. So I did the front desk the first year, and then I was able to move into that other role. And I was grateful. Like in that other role, I also got to work with the person who did the public relations, and I got to do like some media buying. And so they kind of gave me like a taste of a lot of different things. But I also felt like because I started at the front desk, I just was always going to be seen by everybody as like the person that worked at the front desk. That became like really clear to me pretty quickly because they'd hire other people in fresh out of college and they didn't have to start
Oh,
at the front desk. And so I just very much like started feeling like I'm not going to get where I want to be. So I did take some other jobs like as a marketing, like in the marketing accounting world for some different organizations. I did some like junior marketing director positions and like
mhm.
financial organizations, but I was always in that marketing communications type of role, but in these different industries, I guess is the best way to put it.
Okay. So I know at some point, and you'll have to help me with the timeline, but
Yes.
you have a lot of history in nursing. So did you end up flipping from the marketing, the communications over to nursing at
Yes,
some point in
I
there?
did.
Okay, how did
Yeah,
that happen?
well, when I was 24, I was diagnosed with melanoma, skin cancer. And, it was an interesting time. You definitely are like, "Oh, I'm not as invincible as I
Mhm.
thought I was." You're kind of looking at life through a different lens, and that was at quite a young age to even be faced with that, where so much of me, like, still wanted to be with my friends and, like doing what you do in your 20s and just working and have like this so-called normal life. And I was very quickly like thrown into, well, you have to make a lot of really hard decisions. And I knew I wasn't like loving the business world during that time. And I actually had, so my surgical oncologist, because if you were young enough, he didn't put you under when he would go in to do the excision or the big
Oh,
removal. And
wow.
so he just like gave me local, numb the area, gave me some Valium, and my face was tinted. But I had like this amazing nurse that was with me at the head of the bed and talked me through the whole thing. And I just kind of made up my mind that day, like, when and if I recover and get better, I really want to have a job that impacts other people in such a huge way. And, I feel like being raised by two teachers, most of our dinner conversation was, even if they were having a rough time at work, it was always about like how they were changing somebody's life or like this cool story about a kid or, like, yeah, the kid that maybe was getting kicked out of school, but they were doing everything they could to try and keep them in school. And the
Right.
business world just wasn't giving me that. I didn't feel like I was making an impact. I just felt like I was trying to prove myself constantly and jump through hoops that I never was really seeing. I couldn't really jump through the hoops, and the way I wanted to. Um, so after I recovered, I was like, I'm going to go back to school. And so I like made it my mission. And I also during that time, like jumped a lot more into my spirituality practices. So I was doing a lot of like in my 20s, like, please God, let me get better because I really want to go back to school. And, I just remember like taking my dogs on walks and I would just like talk to God the whole time on my walks, like, please just let me get better. Let me find a way to do this. And I was able to. So I was able to do an accelerated generalist master's program
Uh-huh.
and become a nurse. And that really looked like in the beginning, I worked in the NICU at a children's hospital. And so interesting, like there's always been this spiritual element to my work ever since I've gotten into healthcare, but spent a lot of time in the pediatric world. Then went back because I'm a lifelong learner, like always jumping through the next hoop. So became a nurse practitioner, and then eventually received my doctoral degree in nursing.
Okay. All right. Now, how did people react when you were saying you were going back or you were working on this, or did you get some crazy looks? I know I
Yes.
did.
Yeah, so my family's always been one like, when are you ever going to be satisfied? Like, when are you ever going to have enough degrees? When will enough be enough? And it's interesting because my human design really is that I am supposed to be a lifelong learner because I'm supposed to take those experiences and share them with other people. And so I think at times I probably felt a little shame, like, well, I mean, I just really want to learn this. Why are they upset with me? And it wasn't that they were upset. I think they just felt like I was always like reaching for the next
Mhm.
thing, the next thing, the next thing. And I mean, in some ways, I really was, but I can say like I am truly someone like when I'm learning, I am like so lit up. Like I love doing homework. If I could be a professional student, get paid for it, I honestly would. I
Right?
honestly would. Like it would light me up like
The
no other.
structure, the stability, the accountability, like
Yes.
all of that. Yes, I crave that
Yes,
too.
and I love integrating the new things because everything I've
Mhm.
ever done in my life, like, it really has built on top of each other, and it's stacked, like, perfectly into the expression that it's supposed to be to really impact the world. So I feel really grateful in that way.
Right. Right. All right. Um, Let me see. Okay, so along the way, so after you finished your undergrad, you decided to work for a while, you went back for your master's. What would you say are some of the informal types of education that you did during that time?
Like, informal in life
Oops.
or informal professionally, would you
However you
say?
want to define it.
Yeah, well, when I did go back to get my master's degree, It was actually really challenging for my marriage, at the time, and so that marriage did end up falling apart shortly after, I finished school, so I was doing a lot of life learning for sure, during that time, juggling a lot of major emotional,
Mm.
hurdles, as well as at the same time, like, really being at this peak of being so excited about this new career path that, I was embarking on. So, that was definitely interesting, just really reprioritizing, I
Mhm.
think, too, what was important to me, how people should really value me, um, really learning those levels of, like, forgiveness that you have to learn, and a big, huge part of that was, like, forgiving of self. You
Mhm.
know, forgiving of self and forgiving of others were some major, major, things that I learned. Another piece that I learned just through that whole experience was, really having better expectations of people and not
Mm.
always setting the bar so high or having unrealistic expectations. I saw myself like really failing when I'd always been a very type A overachiever. I saw myself just failing in different areas of my personal life. And it really helped me like readjust that lens in terms of, hey, we can fall, but it doesn't mean we're fallen,
Mm,
right?
I
And
love that.
some decisions just don't define you for life. And so it gave me like this new lens of acceptance for myself and then for others, for sure.
I love that. That's so hard too. I think, and maybe it's the lifelong learner, and maybe other people can relate, but having the high expectations of other people and trying
Yes,
to, change that and make that shift is really, really difficult.
it is. It is. You got to get knocked down yourself, I think, before you can really
Right.
um, appreciate what other people have been through or what they could potentially be struggling with.
Right. So, through all of your formal education and the informal learning that you had during that time, what would you say? Can you think of one or two moments that were really like those feel good or success moments for you?
Oh, yes. So, well, I mean, for sure, like when I defended my doctoral presentation, when I went through that, like, oh, you just like I was so lit up, like just so much. Oh, I don't know, like, yeah, you're really proud of yourself, but also like just people really hearing you and recognizing it, and they're just as excited for you as you are for the work that you put like your heart and soul into for however many years, at
Right.
that point. That was really exciting for me. I feel like the other piece, like if I think of another time where it was really exciting, just publishing things, like getting to go and present nationally and internationally. I absolutely love being on stage. I love sharing information and learnings and teachings with other people and like really seeing their faces, like they're connecting the dots.
Those aha
Um,
moments.
Yes, those
Yep.
moments, and then, like, when people come up to you afterwards, like, "That was great. That really changed something for me." It can just take one person,
Mhm.
doing that, and, like, it just lights me up. Like, there's really sometimes there's not words. I think it's more like this feeling that you just embody in those moments, and it's, like, extreme gratitude that what you've poured your heart and soul into is truly making an impact, even if it is for the one person, that comes up to you
Right.
and shares it with you.
Definitely. So, Nicole, let's transition from the past to the
Yes.
present. So, can you share a little bit of what you've done or what you're doing now? And then maybe what are some pieces that you've brought from your past into what you're doing now? How has that helped shape you into what you're doing now?
Yeah. So, I would say probably the biggest thing that I've brought into what I'm doing now, and lots of people call me a coach. I really feel like though I'm like more of a facilitator and guide. That really resonates more for me, and I am. I'm just like I'm a teacher. I want to teach other people things. I want to see them like soar and go to new heights and do all the things. I love watching that with people I work with, whether they're posting about it or they're telling me about it. If there's like any little nugget of something I've shared with them that helps them in some way, that really lights me up and makes it all worthwhile. And the common theme in that is, in healthcare, I took care of patients and I wanted to see them get well, and I wanted to see their families. Sometimes I was working with families that had to do a lot of healing, and there's nothing more gratifying than like sending a patient home with a family that maybe had overcome like a lot of obstacles, you know what I mean,
Mhm.
during that time of hospitalization. I worked for the heart failure transplant team
Oh,
in
wow.
pediatrics. I mean, I saw kids get brand new hearts. I was in the OR while
It's
they
life
put these in
changing.
their, yes, in their chest. Like they had a whole new life.
Wow.
And you can't really put words to that sometimes. But it was so exciting, and then you get to see them as they healed, and you get to see like this new life that they truly had. They had energy again. They got to go be a kid. And it was just so gratifying to watch that. And then even with students, I always said when I left healthcare full time, my students really became my patients, because school's stressful and their mental health is challenged, their physical health is
Oh
challenged,
gosh.
their emotional health, their social health, everything. They're in your office just pouring their hearts out to you or calling you on the phone. But I used to I loved it when they graduate. I loved getting in all the regalia and like being there and putting them, there was just such gratitude for that too, because I saw them on this journey. And so I feel like that's the common theme in the work I do, is that I'm on a journey with people,
Mhm.
whether they're sick, whether they're in school, whether they just need guiding and facilitating in the areas that I do that in now in my business. Like, it is a journey that I go on with them, and I want to see them at the end of that journey. It's not like I need to be with them forever and ever, but I know,
Mhm.
like, for a divine period of time, we're meant to be on that journey together.
Yeah, I love that. I like when you say too, like even being through the Client Attraction Academy with you, you
Hmm.
had said there was a few things that you're like, when the time is right, you know,
Yes.
you'll get the message that you need and all of that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, and you have to really learn that trust. There's
Mhm.
so many times I feel like in my professional roles before having my business, like, I'd push and push within my own will because I felt like it was the next thing. Or
Yeah.
I'd let other people around me tell me like, well, this is what you need to do next. This is where we see you next within the organization. And,
Mhm.
I was so conditioned, like, oh wow, they see that in me. I need to go do it. I need to go do it now. And there were times it was out of alignment. I mean,
Mhm.
I had like physical breakdown in my professional roles where, I had a herniated disc in my neck for no known physical reason other than extreme stress and being under extreme stress. So, I just have had all these learning opportunities as well
Mhm.
in that way, where I know what it's like for some of my clients. I know exactly where they're at. Like, I've been there. I can feel it for them, and that's why, like, I know, like, we're meant at the right time to go on the journey together.
Yeah. Yeah, and I know it's hard too because those expectations of other people, we feel like there's a lot of expectations on ourselves, but I don't know if people are talking about it more, or they're actually doing it more, but thinking more about what is in alignment with them and what
Yes.
is that right path for them and saying no if something comes up where traditionally they might be expected to say yes. I know I've had that in my
Hmm.
career as well, and I've had to kind of backtrack and be like, "No, this isn't the right path. I know this is the other path I wanted to go down." That kind of
Yeah, and I mean, that can be so difficult, like saying no.
Mhm.
It's really easy in certain things, right? Like, I think
Yes.
we're really good at telling ourselves no to things that would really light us up. We're so good at that. People have gotten so good at telling themselves no, and you're just like robbing yourself of all your joy, all
Mhm.
the things that could really fuel the fire to take you to the next level. But it's really difficult to tell other people no. And so
Yes.
you're right. Like, that is so much what I want to, like, just teach other people and like really like instill in them at a very deep level, that you really need to own your no, and
Mhm.
own your no in a way that just lets your life fill up with all the things that it's meant to fill up with.
Yeah, and I think especially too, like in the work world, trying to having to say no and figure out how to say it to somebody who is higher up on that ladder than you are. Because
Yes.
again, all those expectations come into play. We start to say, doubt ourselves a lot more. But there is a way to say no and a way to, whether you give an explanation or not, to do that in a still a professional manner.
Yes, yes, and, I had an experience like that where I had to say no, and there were a lot of people trying to talk me out of my no and leaving this role. And, the greatest thing I learned, there were a lot of things I learned out of that. I learned how to stand my ground. It felt super in alignment, even though I felt like I was letting a lot of people down. But what
Mhm.
I found after I stepped out of that role is that the people that wanted me to stay the most, they really wanted me just to stay in the professional capacity. Like, they didn't want to maintain a relationship with me after I left. Um, I'd see them at conferences and people would avoid me. Um, it was a wonderful learning though, because
Mhm.
in retrospect, if I would have stayed, I would have truly, because of my personality, been staying because of the personal relationships I had developed with them. And sure, the professional is like a bonus, and yeah, I fill this role, but the
Right.
way I'm built and designed, it would have been for them. And what I found when I left is that they really only wanted me in the professional capacity. And so if I hadn't said no, I would have never, ever learned that.
Yeah. That's amazing.
Yeah.
All right. So, Dr. Nicole, if you had to give advice to somebody who is in their learning journey, wherever they are in it, what might be your advice for them as they go through?
Yes. I would say take your time and enjoy it all along the way. Like learning is such a gift. If you're anything that you learn, I mean, we could learn a new recipe, right? Like
Hmm.
be joyful in the moment. If you truly love to learn, be joyful in the small learnings, be so grateful in the large learnings, but really soak it in and enjoy it because it truly is like a privilege. We're so
Hmm.
privileged to get to learn all the things that we learn. And, like the levels of education you and I have, that's a privilege not a lot of people in our
Absolutely.
world, even get to experience. So,
Mhm.
as you're learning, also my advice would be share it with others. Like, don't keep it all to yourself. That's part of that ripple effect. If you have the advantage and the privilege of learning the things you learn, then you actually have a duty and a service to let that ripple out to other people.
Yeah. No, before you even said that, I thought that it's your responsibility to push
Yes,
that out and to share that with other people because a lot of people don't have that opportunity.
right.
Yeah,
Right,
definitely.
and it's like, do it scared. Sometimes we get this like, you'll have an idea, like, "Oh, I'd really like to share that with someone," but then we talk ourselves out of it, or we let someone else talk us out of sharing all of our really deep wisdom. So, really start
Yeah.
valuing that and owning that in yourself as you're learning new things.
Right, right. So, Dr. Nicole, what are some of the things that you get curious about and that you dig into now?
Oh, well, I am constantly curious. I would say right now, my biggest curiosity is really about like helping other people develop their intuition. We have this great internal compass inside ourselves, and when we listen, we can just like learn, literally learn so much. It's right here at our disposal. It's totally internal to us. But I feel like we live in such a noisy world that people can't always tap in. And even when people do tap in, they have a hard time trusting
Mhm.
the information that they're getting. So a lot of what I'm doing right now is really around that. I'm really curious about how can I help other people tap into that and really trust what's coming through for them, because I know from my experience when you're able to do that, it opens up so many possibilities and it creates this sense of peace and calm that you really can't find any
Mhm.
other way.
Yeah, yeah. So is intuition I often hear people talk about going with your gut or what your gut feeling is. So is that the same thing?
It is, but really, like, when I think about intuition, it really is multidimensional. And you know this just from going through Client Attraction Academy with me with our human design. Everyone is going to be like a different type of
Mhm.
intuition. There's a different like a different natural gifting. We all are intuitive beings. Like it's just part of us because everybody has had a gut feeling or a weird coincidence, right? That's
Mhm.
happened where they kind of knew something, that inner knowing on any level. But everyone has their own natural gifting for it too, which I really like to help people discover and start to play around with. But sometimes it can be a gut feeling because some people are more in their bodies. And
Mhm.
so some people, it's more of a knowing, like in their mind. They just get an idea, in their mind. For some people, it's just like they get this whole sense, like almost an outer sense of, oh, like I really like feel this. It's not so much that they get a feeling inside their body or a thought. It's more of that, like I think of it as more of a spiritual sense around it. So part of what I'm trying to bring into helping people recognize their intuition is really helping them see it in their mind, body, and spirit because it's multidimensional and it's
Mhm.
multi-layered. And there's so many ways to develop it, but it's like a muscle. Like you got to work it to get it to work for you.
I love that, and I have a little story kinda to tell related to that too is, so I think it was 10, 11, some years ago,
Mhm.
I had a card reading done,
Oh, nice.
and first time I ever did it, I was very scared, I'm very skeptical just in general about everything, and
Yeah.
so I had taken some notes, she let us record, and one of the things that she said is, "You know what you need to do, you just have to listen to yourself."
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, in my mind, I'm like, where's the sign? Put it in front of my face, like make it as clear as possible, because I can't quiet myself. I can't listen to it. So I keep remembering that. I still have my notes hidden in my folders I come across, from time to time. And then just recently I attended a retreat, a women's retreat, and
Mm-hmm.
did the same thing with some cards just to kind of see what the
Yeah.
same message came up. And I was like,
Mm.
I was told that like over a decade ago, and I wasn't sure how to do it. But I know even Dr. Nicole, with what you have and the community that you're building and the resources that you have, like you even walked us through a visualization recently,
Mm-hmm.
and those for me are very powerful. I struggle with doing the meditation and just the trying to quiet and breathing and things like that, but you have done for me a couple of visualizations,
Yeah.
and my mind takes me to where I need to go to pick up what I need to take with me. And it's just so powerful. And I realized from hearing that just the other weekend and hearing that 10 years ago, I need to definitely tap into that more, do those more so I can pick up what are those things I need to do and put all these pieces together to be able to do what I need to do going forward.
Yes, there are no coincidences. And that's the thing about our inner knowing. It will keep telling us the same thing until we listen, because in so many ways, like, yes, time exists in this human realm for us in a very linear way.
Mhm.
But, in the multidimensional world, you can collapse time. Like, time is just a perception, that we have. So your inner knowing just feels like it's telling you all the time. And your inner knowing doesn't think 10 years, a decade went
Right.
by. It's just going to be really persistent until you step into it or lean into it. And that's really what it is. I feel like some people feel like they have to make this huge leap,
Mhm.
but it is just like exercising or like training a muscle, or like when we're learning something new, since we're talking all about learning today. Like when you're a young child, you do math flashcards, right? You have to practice. It's like
Mhm.
our vocab words. We have to practice them. It's like learning to spell. If we get right back to the basics of how we learn things cognitively, our intuition is very much like that. It's in all these different layers, literally, of our being.
Mhm.
However, we can practice with it. We can play with it. It gets to be really, really fun, so you don't have to take this giant leap, overnight. It can be like what you just said. I'm getting this again. I'm really curious about that. So, like, what's that one small thing I can start to do every day that lets
Right.
me just lean into it a little bit more? The more you lean into it, piece by piece, you'll start getting evidence that you can trust it.
Mhm.
You can start building your level of evidence. And that's why I love intuition, because like there's this whole scientific side and then there's the whole mystical side, right? But it's really this place where they come together. So you gather your evidence over time, and then the next time you get an intuitive hit, you're like, oh, I trust that. It's very
Right.
similar to this other time,
Yeah.
where this happened and I trusted it. So that's the other thing. People get to play with it on their own. So you can guide people, but they have
Mhm.
to take the initiative on their own and really start using it.
Right, right. So, Dr. Cole, can you tell us a little bit more about the community that you have, that you're building, how people can find you? And
Yes.
I know you have, I don't know if, I think that this episode will be out before you start next week.
Uh-huh.
But you want to share with us what you have coming up with your intuition also?
Sure. Yes. Yes. So you can always find me at NicoleGarritano.com. The website will be getting updated, but it has all my contact information. You can find me on Facebook. If you just look up Nicole Garritano, you will find me. But yeah, my new community is the Balanced Being community. That's on Mighty Networks. I also have the Balanced Being Lab, which is on Facebook right now. And yes, next week I am hosting my 5-day intuition experiment. So it really will just be 5 days of allowing people to come in and really giving you like what I created as my balance being formula, like the steps you need to start tapping in to your own intuition, getting that evidence that you need so that you can start taking like aligned action and making aligned decisions in your day to day life. So excited to have that. It's totally free experience. So anyone that wants to come in is welcome, and I will continue to push out content within my Balance Being community and the Balance Being Lab.
Okay. And if people can't make the lives that you do, those will be recorded, right?
There'll
And
be
available on there.
replays, yes.
Okay.
So definitely come into the lab. So I have your contact information. I'll be pushing them out in email, but they'll also just be replayed inside that Facebook group as well.
Yeah, and just to give a plug too for Mighty Networks, because Upskill U leverages Mighty Networks also, you can
Yes.
download it as an app on your phone and reach any of the communities that you're part of on that
Yes.
app. So it's easy.
Yes.
It's
So
very easy.
nice.
And
Mhm.
it's nice because it's outside the noise of Facebook. So, and I know more and more people are leaving Facebook.
Yes.
So if that's something people want, those notifications, and there's no algorithm, it is what it is on Mighty Networks. So
Yes.
please check out the community. Um, Thank you so much. I appreciate your time and your commitment. And we are definitely, if you're up to it, having you back.
Yes,
Because
I
I
would love
know,
that.
yeah, maybe even the results of the intuition experience or the
Yeah.
experiment or talking more about human design. You are a wealth of knowledge and learning. So
Thank
thank you
you.
again. I appreciate
Yes, thank you for having me, and I'm always happy to come back.
it. All right. We'll end this episode and I will see you all on the next one. This podcast is brought to you by Upskill University. You can find more information about how to become part of the Upskill community for free. This and other episodes of the Through the Lens of Learning podcast and more on the website at www.upskilluniversity.com. Thanks again for listening and have an awesome day.